You need to think about the risk. And I don't see any reason to try to help with the software engineering of the layers above the base. They are all high frequency and high complexity. I believe that if you're a smart engineer like Mark Zuckerberg and want to make something that you think is worth hundreds of billions of dollars, you should make it an app on Bitcoin, then go public, raise money, and sell it to everyone. It's possible that you just made the next Facebook or Microsoft. In the event that you are correct, your funders will lose all their money and your code will be removed from the network in due course. However, history reveals that 99.99% of the time you are incorrect. Okay. There were a million people who wanted to be like Mark Zuckerberg, but only a dozen were ever like him. Based on history, it looks like you'll probably be wrong. But, everyone is allowed to shoot. You should risk your time, money, and code. And if you succeed, maybe your Cash App will have 50 million users on the network, and you'll be able to decide how those 50 million people use Bitcoin, right? There could be 500 million people on the network. You could be Microsoft and have a billion people on the network. You would then be able to decide how those billion people use Bitcoin. You could end up with $1 trillion worth of Bitcoin in the network. That's fine, but in the end, you'll be an easy target. You're going to be a business. You have been asked to appear in court. You'll be in one place. Also, you might do well in the US, but you might end up like Apple. Just think about how bad things are for Apple, Google, and Facebook in China right now, okay? All of them are having a lot of trouble with politics. All of these layer 3s are going to have trouble with politics, but you can't downplay the ability to do good. In reality, Microsoft, Apple, and Google have all done things that you could never do with an open protocol or a layer 1 protocol. So it makes no sense to try to do what they do in layer 3 and layer 1. It also makes no sense for them not to use layer 1. That's what I think about taking care of things in general. Okay, I guess the monetary protocol, the transaction protocol, the power protocol, and the core protocol are what make Bitcoin what it is. They need to be defended very strongly as the basis of the whole Bitcoin system. When you look past it and at different extensions of those standards that aren't required, right? You could say they are soft forks. Perhaps. Backward compatible add-ons that might be included or not. People should be able to do whatever they want and the market should decide. Say you made a Bitcoin node that could run on an iPhone, like the one I downloaded. Could you add some iPhone features? Was it likely to work? Is it not likely to work? Different people have different thoughts on it. Do you know? It might be a good thought or not. Really, people will argue about why it shouldn't be in the Apple Store, as long as Apple agrees. Also, someone said, let it go, really. I believe everyone is welcome to make their own program. Either it's layer 2, which I'll describe as being steady. It works with Bitcoin's core protocol, also known as the layer 1 protocol or basic protocol, but you don't have to do it. It's also free to use. That's very fast. It could be 100 different kinds of Lightning. There's also Bitcoin Core, but anyone can make 100 different drivers that use different ports to work on different hardware. The way my version syncs is different, and it syncs in 1 minute on your Android phone. It also syncs and runs differently, and people will argue about it. They can talk about it or not. It might change, but it might not change. The market will probably figure it out as long as it doesn't mess with the power protocol, the money protocol, or the trade protocol. Plus, I believe a lot of them turn into layer 3 because there's a guardian, a business, or a centralized group of people. Most people will, because if you want to do something with a lot of features, performance, or something else, any other bells and whistles, you'll need a well-organized software engineering team to make things more usable, compatible, and compliant. It's clear that we need those, right? If you want to use Bitcoin in a regulated area and the politicians there say you have to follow this rule or it's illegal, then someone will make software that makes you follow the rules. That company will do that, and that company will almost certainly not be following the rules in other places. In that case, I believe it's just a part of a strong economy, like the Bitcoin economy, and a huge number of ideas will be tested. Some of them will be great, but they won't be able to make money, and some will be great ideas, but the government will stop them. There will also be great ideas that no one will care about. If you live long enough, you'll come up with new ideas. I've said this before, I came up with 100 ideas. but not many of them sold well. On the iPhone, it's simple to make the app. That took place 100,000 times. Few apps for iPhones have reached a billion users though. You could count them on two hands. That's why the business should be strong and people should always be trying new things. What's really important is, for example, is it a strategy for open layer 2, layer 3, or something completely different? When an expert comes up with a good idea and says, Bitcoin really needs this, I usually ask them, why don't you add it to your version of Bitcoin or in some other way? Let's make a special lightning node with that feature and see if 100 million people adopt it because they like it. If they do, maybe someone will say that it should be added back to the core base protocol because it's useful. On the other hand, maybe 100 million people will use it and will decide that we don't need to add it to the base protocol because it worked already, right? You wouldn't put the DNA code of all people at risk, right? Not needed. When I think about my filters, the first thing I always do is ask myself, what kind of engineering risk does this introduce? Because Bitcoin is what it is, I think it will be 100 times more successful than it is now. Before I'll be interested, you have to show me something that makes it a million times better and doesn't pose any risk. If not, I just thought the 737 MAX was a great idea. A lot of people have died and you've gone backwards. You killed a lot of innocent people and almost put the company out of business. You lost 20 to 40 billion dollars while trying to do good. That's great for you, right? We might not need to do that after all. I also think that the economic limits are very important. Adding new features to the base protocol slows down and stops the growth of all applications on the layers above it. But because you want to put it in layer 1, you're taking a